what's being inflicted upon the human race is mass trauma. And you look at the background to these mind control projects like MKUltra. And from that time in 1996, I spent the next probably 6-7 years investigating mind control, how it worked, and the techniques. Trauma-based mind control, that's what MKUltra was. That's what so much of this mind control is, because it compartmentalizes the mind into a honeycomb of self-contained compartments, which the mind control industry calls alters. And they create a front alter, which is supposed to be the person's personality, not only for those around them, but the person themselves thinks that's them. They call it the front alter. But all these other compartments are in the subconscious, and they program in them with behavior traits and perceptual traits. And when they then move through hypnotic keys and other techniques, the front alter into the subconscious and bring a back alter forward, the back alter then becomes that person's behavior, becomes that person's personality. And so how do they compartmentalize the mind? Through trauma. They make even young children, these people are psychopaths beyond belief, experience horrific trauma. They find out what makes the child the most terrified and they make them experience it. So the mind then shuts out the memory of the trauma and creates basically a compartment, what they call an alter, which can be, like I say, programmed with a task. This is where your Manchurian candidates come from and all this stuff. So what's happening to the population in general is they're being systematically traumatized. And you can see these alters created that shut out the trauma by basically creating a bubble around it. And this is one explanation for why so many people simply cannot see the bloody obvious. Awakening people are looking at the world now, the pronouncements and the statements and the contradictions, and they're putting their hands on their head and they say, why can't people see it? A lot of people can now, but a lot of people can't. And part of it is this not wishing to face what you don't want to experience. And this is why fear is the weapon of choice of that force which is behind all this. It's like everything in life, it is the receiver that dictates the response, dictates the effect. I've gone through enormous amounts of ridicule and abuse. I mean, just historic levels in the 90s and around that period. And I chose to receive it on the basis of I'm speaking my truth, and what people make of it is up to them. But my truth is my truth, and so I'm going to speak it. And I'm not going to be intimidated into not speaking it. If people hurl abuse at me, good luck and have a nice day, because it's going in one ear and out the other. And so you can receive a traumatic situation in many different ways. And so often we lose an understanding that the way we receive information, the way we receive experience is a choice. So with this woke mentality, everyone's offended. Now, I don't know what it's like to be offended because I don't receive information or experience in a way that I'm offended. If people don't agree with what I say, they have every right not to agree with what I say, but I have every right to say it. And so that's the dynamic. And if you don't like it, we'll do the other thing because that's fine with me as well. But others would say, I'm offended. How dare you say that about me? Once you start down that road, what you're doing is you're giving your entire power away. You're giving your power away to that which you've decided offends you. Because now the person offending you is dictating your life, is dictating your emotions. All these different aspects of your daily life are being affected by someone who's offended you. But for you to be offended, you have to choose to be offended. So what I'm saying is that There are some horrific traumas. Geez, when I've investigated MK Ultra, it's horrific. But so much trauma is received as such because people make a choice to do that, and they don't have to. You don't have to concede to fear. It's a choice. If you look at fear, people that concede to it almost every time, if not every time, give their power away. Because once you can get someone in a state of fear of something, people look outside of themselves for protection and others to protect them from what they've been manipulated to fear. Mainstream medical doctors, most of which haven't got a clue about how the body works or what the body is, they're just prescription writers for a big pharma. They get their power from people fearing death. I think this is the foundation of it all, the fear of death. This is the bottom line of everything. Because once you realize that there is no death, that the body may have a cycle, yes, but we, consciousness, have eternity, then everything starts to chill out. And the amount of things that you can be traumatized by and intimidated by just plummets. Because what's the worst that can happen? Okay, you leave the body. You're going to leave the body at some point anyway. Just a matter of when. So you're going to threaten my life if I speak out? Well, okay, you threaten my life. I'm still going to speak out. I would rather leave my body a bit early. I won't mind. But I'd rather leave my body a bit early, speaking my truth and holding on to my self-respect, than to bow and submit to buy a few more years in a dystopia.
You know, when you look at a pyramid, we've been manipulated to believe the power in a pyramid is at the top. It ain't. The top of the pyramid is there because the rest of the pyramid's holding it up. We're holding this whole thing together. There's a story I told many years ago of a British comedian called Larry Grayson, who died. I went to his memorial service in Covent Garden, and this other comedian did this tribute to his life in which he read out this story that Larry Grayson had told him. When they were going around the variety halls and the theaters in the 60s, they had this all-male show. And Larry Grayson was the only woman in it because he used to dress up as a woman. And he said that the end of the show, the last scene, all the sailors, all the men came on dressed as sailors, and they were singing Rule Britannia. You know, Rule Britannia, Britannia rules the waves. Oh, I'm very pleased for you. Okay. And as it built up, Larry Grayson would come on dressed as Britannia with the helmet and the shield, and he would be manhandled up the side of this pyramid to the top for the big finish. And he said one night, he said things seemed to be going rather well. He said, and then I noticed that a sailor in the bottom left-hand corner had got rather a cough. And this cough got worse and worse and worse to the point where the sailor couldn't stay in the pyramid anymore and stepped out of it. Larry Grayson, symbolic of this elite at the peak of the pyramid, ended up in the second row. And the elite, the power center, had done nothing to bring about this. One sailor, the bottom of the pyramid, had got a cough. And the whole thing collapsed. That's it. We, the powerless people, are holding the powerful people up there, and they know that. They're terrified of us realizing that. And that's why this network of manipulation works so hard to keep us in these states. No longer will we just do it because we're told to do it. Is it just? Is it right? Okay, I'll do it. Is it unjust? Is it not right? I ain't doing it. We start to make the decisions on what we will and will not do based on our values and not some imposition from the dark suits. These people are gonna give me, grant me, or grant me not my freedom. I'm all that is. You can't grant me freedom. No one can grant me freedom. I am freedom. It's what I am. The big question, what would consciousness do? What would consciousness do in this situation? And when we ask that question, it really just changed the way we see the world. Not what would I do, mind, or frightened. What would consciousness do? You know, this is a great line. If it's not right, don't do it. If it's not true, don't say it. And what would transform this world overnight is if we started doing what we knew to be right in the situations we face, instead of what we think is right for us in the moment. What is right? What is just in this situation? If we started making decisions based on that, the world would transform overnight. These are very simple things. If we want a world of peace, then we need to be peaceful. We don't need to fight for it. We just need to be peaceful, and we'll bring that about. If we want a world of kindness, we need to be kind, and then it will naturally unfold. We don't fight for kindness. As Martin Luther King said, it's a wonderful saying. Cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it politic? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But consciousness asks the question, is it right? And there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular, but one must take it because it is right. And when enough of us do that, what is right will manifest by definition. And we're in this position now where this vibrational change, this energetic change is taking place, when we can start becoming the full magnitude of who we are, where we can be consciousness in the now, using mind to experience this reality instead of being governed by it, turning the key to let consciousness in. We're being offered this opportunity now. No longer can we say we didn't realize who we are, we didn't know we could do that.